These are 3 brand new controllers. This is a brand new Astro C40. It's pretty obvious I need to find a better controller, but sadly the Astro C40 is still the best controller I've ever used to this day. So I bought the most popular Pro controllers and some LED lights because I needed some new lights to compare and to hopefully replace the Astro C40. Building a PC can be stressful, especially if you don't know which parts to order. So I partnered up with Apex Gaming and we made 3 pre-built, ready-to-order PCs so you don't have to worry about anything but getting a real job in the future after you spend 5 years playing the same game and all your mom wants you to do is do the dishes and take out. If you're interested, you can use code SLITE for up to $250 off of your purchase. Have fun. I got all 3 controllers the next day and the LED lights because I needed some new lights and set them up so I could test them out on my PC. I started with the Razer Wolverine V2 Pro controller, which sits at around $250. Right out of the box, it had a nice feel. I've never been a huge fan of the Xbox layout, but I'm not entirely against it if the controller isn't too big. For example, my Astro C40 can switch layouts, but it's also the biggest controller I've ever used, so it's very uncomfortable to play Xbox layout. The second thing I noticed is that it has mechanical buttons, and they actually feel and sound really satisfying. But it's a Pro controller with 4 paddles on the back, so if you don't play claw, you basically will never touch the face buttons. They're still really satisfying though. It also came with an extended analog stick, which most Pro controllers do, so I went ahead and put that on. There's trigger stops on the back, and like I said earlier, 4 paddles, but they were placed really weird. And for a first impression, this might have ruined the controller because I didn't really know how comfortable they were going to be. Usually paddles are placed where you rest your middle and ring fingers on the controller, and unless your face sway, there is no possible way to comfortably play with this controller for longer periods of time or even at all. But I gave it the benefit of the doubt and plugged it into my PC to test it out on Fortnite. And just as I thought, practicing was horrible. Probably even worse because the paddles I thought that I was supposed to press were not what I was supposed to press. The default paddles were at the top, which was way more uncomfortable than I imagined initially. I couldn't really build like usual, and I always felt like I was reaching to press the paddle. It felt so weird that I literally forgot how to build sometimes because my mind was thinking that the paddles were new binds. I tried to edit course, and other than the elephant in the room, there was no delay, and everything else seemed to be perfect. So I took it to a ranked game to see if I would change my mind, but I doubt I'll spawn anyway, so I did it. I mean, it's not like the controller was horrible. It's just no, it's horrible. The next controller I set up was the Scuf Instinct Pro with the price tag of a little over $200. This is Scuf's newest Xbox controller. I already felt familiar with it because I already have Scuf's newest PS5 controller. By the way, I've never had problems with this controller. It just felt a little cheap and I honestly preferred the Astro C40 over it. Anyways, the unboxing was simple and identical to the Reflex. The controller comes with 4 paddles, which in my opinion are placed perfectly. Usually I never end up using all 4 paddles on a controller because I end up misclicking, but I could definitely learn all 4 in this case. The way that they're set up makes you use just your middle fingers for all of the paddles, making every press intentional and never accidental. It also came with Scuf's premium digital tap triggers, which are a step up from trigger stops and basically turn the triggers into buttons. They are really nice and clicky, and it feels mechanical like the buttons from the Razer controller. But it's actually a better option to add the clicks to triggers rather than to buttons that you aren't even technically meant to use. The only accessories it comes with is a tall analog stick. I already knew how to put that on from just owning my Reflex. Still feels dangerous, and other than the instructions that no one ever reads, the controller passed the eye test and was ready to play. When I hopped into practice, it felt surprisingly normal. I haven't played on a controller that felt this normal in a long time. And I know that it's way smaller than what I'm used to, but honestly, I prefer the smaller size, even over the PlayStation version of this controller. It just seemed to fit my hands perfectly. The only thing that I didn't like that I noticed while playing was the dead zone of the right stick. It seemed super sensitive, and since I had an Xbox Elite, I thought I could just use the Xbox Accessories app to change the dead zone instead of using Fortnite. But it only shows up as a default Xbox controller in the app and not the Elite version, so I had to change it in the game. I experimented a little and I found something I liked. Then I played an edit course to test the mechanics, and I could really get used to this controller. After that, I hopped in a ranked game to get a high kill win for my first game with the new controller, but I died off spawn again because someone took my game. Seriously though, I'm excited about this controller because I've been looking into a replacement for 5 years and nothing has truly impressed me until now. I just didn't think an Xbox controller would ever surprise me. So I'm definitely going to be playing with the Scuf Instinct Pro more and learning how to use the extra paddles. The last controller I bought was the DualSense Edge for $200, and I had a good feeling about this one. It's Sony's first Pro controller that released earlier this year. Just by looking at the back, I could tell it was super customizable, and I was curious to check it out. Inside, the controller came in a nice PlayStation shell case, and all the accessories included reminded me of the Xbox Elite. The controller itself is beautiful and feels really solid. Something really interesting I noticed immediately was the function buttons right under both analog sticks. I had no idea what they're for or if I would ever make use of them, but I've never seen function buttons on a controller before. They looked easy to access and weren't horribly placed either, so Sony might be onto something here. Anyways, there's 2 paddle slots on the back, trigger stops, and a few new things that look pretty unimportant, so I left them alone. After putting the 2 paddles and the taller analog stick on, everything was pretty comfortable, so I plugged it into my PC. But it wasn't working, so I actually had to read the instructions. Then I found 3 things that I missed, so I set up my controller all over again. Number 1, the controller had 2 paddle slots, but it came with a different set of paddles that were a little more comfortable than the default ones. They were quicker to press, and I'm guessing those were for the more competitive players, so I kept them on. Number 2, it also came with something called a cable lock, which locks your wired connection to your controller, so you can't accidentally or intentionally unplug the controller unless you unlock it yourself. Pretty neat. And number 3, something that the Astro C40 has had that I've been looking for years in a good controller is finally the ability to replace the left or right stick module. Stick drift is inevitable for controllers, and the ability to just buy a replacement stick instead of using a warranty, or even worse, having to buy a brand new controller and throwing out the one that you bought because you're just getting drift, is actually crazy. Astro tried this, but their sticks have always been buggy, and if it's not the sticks, I promise you it's going to be something else. But this might just be my new favorite controller if I can get this thing to work. But long story short, it didn't. I went to Sony's website and it says there's PC support for most PCs and games, but I couldn't even get my controller to work, and it states that you need a PS5 just to assign the paddles. I'm guessing to even get it to work, I have to spend an extra $500. So I think it's obvious that there's only one more thing that I need to do today.